mean, that brings me to my hottest take, that Federer and Nadal kind of ruined tennis in a way.
Hey everyone, on today's episode of Baseline Intelligence, we have Coach Conor Casey. You all might know him as one of the funniest coaches on Instagram. The content is super relatable. But what you might not know is he was also a great player. He reached top 1200 ATP, he played at Ohio State, and he's currently a great coach working up in Canada. And so on today's episode, we discuss his hottest takes and his best advice for the 4-0 player. I hope you enjoyed the episode.
All right, Conor, welcome to the pod.
Hey.
This is a big one. Actually, when I put the Instagram story up, I got a lot of people who were very excited. And I imagine because your content is funny, everyone loves it. Is there any pressure that you feel like, because Instagram, you got to put out videos all the time. And Are you like, man, how am I going to keep finding something funny for people to laugh at?
That's my curse, man. I don't run out of ideas. I'm not saying they're all good, but I certainly, my mind doesn't stop. You know, God bless my wife. God bless anybody who has to be around me, because I feel like I have that, I'm open, like I'm just a conduit to everything happening and it just goes into me. So thank God I don't have a lack of ideas, but I definitely get the fatigue of having to post every day. So, you know, I've started to do every other day.
Love that. So this isn't 60 minutes, but I do a little bit of research before. Yeah, exactly. And that
used to be a signal for us. I heard that noise the other day. That was a sign that it was Sunday. It was time for dinner on Sunday nights.
That's so funny. That was a sign for me that football was over, and now like I had to go back to living my life normally. Yeah. So I checked you out, and I was like, okay, I wanted like just playing background, all that stuff, and I came across your IMDb. So actually, I want you to check your phone now. I sent you a text. Okay. I don't know how to share my screen, so if they're not listening on YouTube, but I found this IMDb stock photo of you. Where you're throwing like a blue steel. Yeah, it is strong. I want to know, like, is there something I'm missing? Were you like a movie star in the past? What is going on with that photo?
You know, yeah. So I moved to LA back in the day. I tried to do the acting thing. You know, I did acting classes in the backyard of an acting coach with other acting people. Got my steamy headshots done and tried to make a run at it. Didn't work, but hey, you know, blue steel.
That is a steamy photo. So if you're listening and you're not on YouTube, you might want to click on the link just so you can see that photo. I might even post it on Instagram. Should definitely be your profile picture. So when I message you to get on, you know, I always kind of ask, what are people passionate about? What do you want to talk about with tennis? There's so many things. It could be technical, tactical. And the first thing that you gave me was you were most passionate about tennis culture and etiquette.
Yeah.
So I would love for you to kind of expand on what that means to you and why you're so passionate about it.
So we look at the sport of tennis and we look at Sinner and Alcaraz and all these great players on television, and that's their experience. That's 100 people in the world, guys and, you know, 100 men, 100 women. They're experiencing that. The greater ocean of tennis players are trying to figure out, okay, if my ball goes onto their court, how do I get it back without pissing them off, right? And this is the soil of our experience. This is where beefs are cultivated, friendships are made. So to me, I love the nuance of the country club, the tennis club, the public court experience, right? All those little political games that are being played, because, you know, not all of us can be on television playing. The reality is most of us are living in the sewers, tennis sewers. You know.
So you're coaching. I think you always say on your videos like the C team doubles, or that's the joke that you have. But you're at a club. So what are some of the? I have some intense women at the club I'm at. I don't work with them, but I watch the matches, and it is every bit as intense as a college duel from what I've seen. So what are some of those things in the culture that you see that you're like, you know what? Maybe it's not the healthiest or most conducive either to enjoyment or just improvement in general.
Well, right away, it's the springtime right now, and I'm at a seasonal club. So what you start to see in early spring, before the club is officially open, is you got people that come onto the courts and start coaching tennis lessons, but they're not coaches at the club, right? I got a guy here running a full academy out here with a garbage bag of tennis balls, and I have to go politely remind him that he's not a member, right? You don't want to ruin the neighborhood and chase him out with a tennis racket. So I have to go through the nuances of politely reminding him that he's not a member here. To me, that that gets a little bit distasteful when people are doing that. Then, of course, you got, right now, like I did a video yesterday about a guy who there's always the coach. There's always those, they tend to be gentlemen that will circle a tennis lesson when I'm giving a woman a tennis lesson. And afterwards he'll call her aside and, tell him that Coach Casey doesn't really know what he's talking about. Let me fix that backhand. And, those guys are everywhere. So I think, those are a couple examples.
That's so funny. There's probably a lot of times where I'd actually want to ask that guy, because maybe I finish a lesson and I'm like, man, I tried like crazy and it just doesn't look any better. I'd be like, hey, random guy walking around in a circle. You got any ideas? But it is kind of amazing that, it is so hard, especially in a lesson, to really see like quality, tangible improvement within 60 minutes. And yet someone who's never gone through a coaching program, maybe has watched a few YouTube videos, is like, oh, I know how to fix that. And it's like, it is much more difficult than you would think.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, like opinions with tennis, as soon as you're walking through your tennis game and you've got your coach who you're paying and they give you a tip on that elbow to get it up high, let's say, and then you walk off the court and Mr. Random Guy tells you to keep that elbow maybe a couple degrees lower. Now you got two voices in your head. That becomes, exponentially more difficult to deal with.
Right. So when you're at home at your club and you're teaching lessons or clinics, are you more of like a tactical guy? Or are you a technical guy? Are you more of a emotional, like where's your head at? That's how you play your best tennis. Like what do you tend to gravitate towards, generally speaking?
Well, currently at the age of 40 something, I've become more of I like working with beginners. I like laying a technical foundation. Definitely love tactics, of course. I come from the old school serve and volley, so I'm always trying to get people to attack, probably more than they should. But I think, us coaches, we go through stages, right? Like yourself, you played at Duke, you played some pro doubles, and then you had to transition into coaching. I feel when I transitioned originally, that's when I worked well with professionals and high performance juniors because I was so close to it. The wound was still very fresh. So I knew the little tips and tricks, right? The pro tips. That's what they needed. And then as I've gone through my coaching journey, I went to more of just the regular juniors and the club players that were looking for more programs. And now I find myself in a place where I love laying a technical foundation. Especially like I love getting a brand new person to the game. Like I love being your like guide to the sport. That's sort of my perfect student.
Do you find, I think most people probably go through the journey that I went, which is like you said, you played high level and then you're coaching either good juniors or other, people your age, and you had those experiences. And so I was like, oh, I'm in the game, that's competitive. And now in the last 2-3 years, I've definitely transitioned more to adults.
Yeah.
Definitely not like, national championship level or anything like that. But it has by far been the most fun I've had because number one, they can make massive gains, but also like they're so thirsty and like want to be coached.
Yeah.
Like I think it was one of my coaches used to call it dry clay versus wet clay. He's like, he's like, once you get the guy in college, like the kids I coached at Duke were like, no, I got my game. Like I kind of want to do what I want to do. I've been molded a certain way, but you kind of get the 40-year-old recreational players just picked it up and it's like this massive passion. And they're like, I'm all ears. Have you found that?
Totally. I love that. I love the fact that somebody would trust me for 1 hour of their life to listen to me because, I'd almost pay them an hour to listen to me for an hour. Right. So it's huge. Absolutely. I find there's definitely a demographic. I think it's the backbone of our sport is the mostly women. Let's say they've had a couple kids and they're into their 30s and they're sort of like, my wife is going through this as well. She's a hero in my books. She just gave birth and now she's sort of coming back online after such a traumatic yet beautiful, amazing experience. And she's trying to re-identify herself and find out who she is. And some of these women, they trust coaches like you and I to introduce them to tennis, which is a huge privilege. And they're open and they're receptive to learning and we're rebuilding them and we're getting their confidence back. It's a magical experience.
So when you have someone come to you like that, who's new to the game, like where do you start them? Like you go, hey, they come out and they've like, hey, I'd like to learn how to play tennis. Are you focusing on ground strokes? Are you focusing on targets? Are you focusing on the intricate details of technique? Like someone comes out blank slate 2-5. What are you doing?
Immediately gonna check the hand-eye coordination. Just, classic, throw them a ball, see how they catch it, see which hands they're using, do a couple bouncing exercises just to see where that coordination lies. And if, let's say, they're doing a good job of that, we'll go on to some like, hand-eye with the racket, with catching the ball against the racket. I'll treat them the same as I'll treat a 4-year-old, to be honest with you, right out the gate. Maybe even use some progressive colored tennis balls just to sort of get them making contact and getting that rhythm going. And let's say they're doing a great job of that. Like, I'm not afraid, and this is a hot take in a way in the tennis world, I'm not afraid to go right to the slice backhand, which is something that most coaches leave to the end, like the cherry on top of your game. I think it's great to use the slice early because, look, that continental grip, it's coming whether you like it or not. And a lot of coaches like to avoid it, and players avoid it. And we go right into the bashing because that's what they see on TV. If I get a receptive, let's say more of a creative player who's willing to really trust me and put some time in, I'll go to the slice. We'll work on a bit of the maneuvering of the ball, getting a little slice on there, a little cut on there, a little pop maybe, right? And I think it's immediately laying a foundation of tennis IQ, because for me the slice is where the DNA of the game lies. It's been around since the 1800s and they're still using it, right? It's not like serve and volleying, which had its day and we all wish will come back, but I don't know if that's going to happen. So I think it immediately is building a strong IQ for the players, and I'm game to start that early.
It's so funny because I never hear people complain at the recreational level about, oh, they hit so much topspin. It's usually like a derogatory, like, oh, like they just sliced everything.
Yeah.
And they don't like it because they don't like playing off a slice. And then I'm like, but nobody likes it. So why don't you learn it and give them something they don't want?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's got a stigma, the junk ball, right?
Right. So what are your best, if you teach that early, then like what are your best technical cues, or what do you tend to focus on? What are your key principles for hitting a good backhand slice?
From the shoulder is generally where I sort of see it coming from. I've got a couple tricks that I learned from this really good technical coach named Louis Caillet, who's one of the technical godfathers. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him.
A little guy, like, oh, he's basically Jesus, tennis Jesus. He's incredible.
Yeah, exactly. So I was lucky enough. Like I've been lucky I have a bit of like a lucky life. Like I was his apprentice before he got big. Mm-hmm. So, I was there watching him do all this magic, and I stole all of his tricks, and I still have them, and I use them religiously. So I tend to lead from the shoulder. I like to get into sort of like the easy, what I would call like audio cues, I guess, like, or tactile cue, like a catch, send is sort of a cue that I use, lifting from the shoulder. Yeah, like, for me, a lot of the stuff as like yourself, I love all your videos with talking about, big swings and big targets. I like giving them a target right out the gate to hit towards. And I mean, coming from the ground, left foot to right foot transfer. If they're a righty, I go right into some of that footwork, So I guess, the way to say it, this was from Louis. He goes, you either build from the ground to the hand or the hand back down to the ground. So you'll go from you'll start from footwork. Once that footwork is working nicely, you'll go into a little bit of the momentum shift, and then you'll get into the intricacies of the hand. Or if let's say they're a bit more of a hand, it's just working out that day, you might start with a bit of the hand, and then as that gets good, you'll go to the macro version with the feet.
That's super interesting. So how do you decide that? Just based on the player? Like, I think I had Andy Fitzel on. I don't know if you know him, but he was saying how he can watch someone hit a ball and decide pretty quickly if they're like what their brain type is, that Myers-Briggs. And right. I forget what the letters were, but he's like, oh, when you see people who are a little bit more like with their fingers, he's like, oh, they're like an ISTJ. And if you see like the big body movers, they're a certain way. Yeah. Would you start at the hand if you see someone who's more like I'm more handsy for sure. Like right. I'm more feel. So would that be how you decide which way you're going to go? Or do you typically tend to lean one way or the other, like ground up or hand down?
I would look at the player for sure. Like, I think talented players tend to be a bit more with the hands and feel and even using metaphors. I find with lefties, I just say like, yo, just vibe out and just kind of like, get a cheeky little cut under there, and they understand what I'm saying. Right. So with righties, especially if I get that, that workhorse who's got the furrowed brow and is there for that hour and they want to allot their time, I'll probably get a bit more, stern with the footwork. But also, just like, and I was thinking about this yesterday, just with lesson plans. So let's say we've done a ton of footwork already and they need a little bit of a break. I might transition to some and get in with the hands. So it could be more just about what's happening on that day.
Got it. You mentioned big swings to big targets, and
love it.
I want to address that because obviously that's a huge thing for me as well. Is that your number one coaching mantra? You said you have coaching mantras. Is that the biggest of them all?
I think so. Because for me, big swings, big targets is essentially such a freeing mantra. It alleviates that pressure of trying to go for the lines. It demystifies the concept of angle and everything. If you're taking a bigger target, if you realize that you can penetrate the center of the court and still hit a ball that's close to the line, and you make your target the center of the court, right? The center of the net strap. Like, you can hit a ball that passes the middle net strap and it lands right in the corner. But if your target is the center net strap, that's a big target. So to me, that's just liberating. It liberated me as a player. And where I love big swings, big targets the most is on the return of serve. Now, big swing, I might say, big target, go for it. I might cut out the backswing, but I'm still saying attack the heck out of the return of serve, because I think a bad habit that happens with tennis players is they come to the sport and they think the serve is attack, the return is defend. And when they return, they start chipping the back. They start chipping the backhand. They get a defensive nature. They tighten up. They try to be safe on the return. Once in my tennis journey, I realized that the return of serve is an attack. It completely changed my game, because I realized, go for it, swing big, take a big target, but you're attacking the return. And that was a huge thing for myself.
So you mentioned aiming kind of above that center strap, which is something I did in doubles. And I've heard someone describe the court as like an hourglass. So like everything's going to pass through that middle part of the sand, but then when you get out there, it can be wider. So your ball cleared the net strap, and then it looks very wide, but everything's happening where that sand kind of sifts through the hourglass, which for me was a great visual. But when you have a target in your mind, are you then aiming at a spot like that over the net, or do you have a spot in the court that you kind of have in the back of your mind where you're like, oh, middle of the box, depth and width wise in the deuce court, or are you seeing a spot above the net?
Above the net definitely would be the choice there. I think the closer the target is to you, the more likely you are to hit it. So I've even done lessons and exercises where I'll put the targets a foot in front of the player and say, hey, if your ball can pass through this gate, it's going to hit that target. And it happens. And again, another liberating experience, right? The closer the target is to you, the easier it is to hit. So build targets that are close.
It's interesting because I just wrote that down before. So I had what could probably only be described as like the backhand yips when I was a freshman in college. So I actually wrote an email and I addressed it to the freshman class at Duke, and the subject was missing. And I said, I've lost my backhand.
Yeah.
Can someone find it for, I was like, I couldn't even drop feed it to myself. It was shocking. And I went home, and what my coach did was he put a hula hoop, attached it to a basket. He put it about a yard in front of me.
Okay.
But it was waist high. And he said, I want you to hit through the hula hoop, but it must go through on the way up.
Yep.
And he gave me zero technical advice. He said, just figure out how to hit it through there, but you can't swing down and hit it because obviously that'll go in the net.
Yeah.
And I did that for like an hour. I was like, oh, it's back.
Yeah.
No technical advice. It was just a target in front and swing up through that short target.
Good coach.
Great coach. One of my bets. But that I found, I think I still aim to a spot on the court, not an air target. But when I am struggling with a shot, I visualize a hula hoop in front of me and I just go, all I got to do is hit in front of that. And if I'm close to it, like how far can my shot possibly miss by?
Yeah. Yeah. Another thing is using objects on the court as targets. So for example, you've got the umpire chair beside the net and you're warming up. Okay. I'm going to get everything above the umpire chair. Mm-hmm. Right. To me, that's another little one, like finding things in the atmosphere that you can use as targets.
Do you find there are any issues? So the example I use is I told a girl the other day, we were working on something. This was like a month ago. And I said, take your racket back faster. And so she did, and she had a forehand and it wasn't great, but I said, oh, that was better. And she said, that wasn't good. And I was like, whoa, I never said that was good. Like that was far from good. It was just better than the one before. So I said the word better. She heard the word good.
Right.
Do you get concerned when you say big swings? My initial thing is like, oh, but I don't want like the 3-5 lady like crushing the ball because she probably doesn't have a closed racket face. Do you find that when you say big swings that people either literally take a bigger swing versus a confident swing or acceleration? Is there any issue with that?
I would say I want a conversation to happen a lot of the times with these players. People are fighting their own battle in their head. They have their own preconceived notions as to what big is and small swings are. If I ask Rosemary to take a big swing and she goes like this and hits the ball 100 miles an hour and does almost an exaggerated version of what I asked her and then turns back to me and says like that, now we got a conversation going. Now we can find what works, right? So I actually don't mind that. I don't mind when they overcompensate or really take my advice literally and make a mistake and then go, hey, coach. Where it gets tricky is when they slowly are hesitant to add, and then it becomes you trying to get a horse to water, right? You're trying to think of all these creative ways to get them to just try it before we can start to scale, right? So yeah, I mean, look, to me, some of the greatest moments in technique happen when you mock the coach. Coach says high elbow. They go, oh, like this? I go, you finally did it. Right? Like so often. So I'm all for it.
That's so true. That's so funny. The analogy I always use is like if you had an ice cold pool and you went and dipped your toe in it, you would never get used to it. Just jump in. It's going to be awful for 2 minutes and then you're fine. But most people technically change. They just dip their toe in and they go, that didn't feel good. And they just do that for like 5 years and then they never get a better shot.
Just cold plunge in the toes.
Exactly.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Do you have if that's your biggest mantra, is there another philosophy mantra that you use in general, whether it's doubles, singles mentality? Is there another huge one that you lean on?
I mean, attack is a big one because I believe that attacking is a 3-shot game minimum. You're not attacking and then watching. You the second that you decide that you're attacking, you've now committed yourself to at least the next 3 balls. So let's say, it's the serve +1. You've smacked the serve. There's your attack. You get around it. You're hitting the serve +1. There's your second attack. And then perfect world, your third attack is like a put away volley or an easy short forehand.
Interesting. I have so many questions about that one.
Yeah.
So you clearly you were more of an attacking mindset, the old school serve and volley, continental grip coming in. So what would you say to that? Like the first thing that came to mind was like, well, what happens if I hit a good +1, but then you hit a good defensive shot off that?
Yeah.
Am I going to switch my mindset or am I just kind of committed all in?
That's a good question. Depends who you are. Me, I might even, it depends what your shot tolerance is too, right? Like that, let's say you bang the serve, you bang a good +1, and then they hit an incredible response, and you're John Isner, and you're going, okay, now I got to rally 6 balls before I get my next attack. Depends on, like, it's the third set. Maybe I just pull shoot and go for a winner off this next ball. If you're somebody who has a bit more gas in the tank, maybe you take that defensive one, neutralize, and get back into the rally and look again. But I think that whenever you commit to the attack, you're hoping best case scenario, you're going to hit 3 you're committed to 3. Yeah. Best case you hit 1.
Right. That makes sense. I'm definitely a thinker. I think a lot. And so like for me, I do a lot of drills where I actually have people change their mind. Like I might feed them a ball and I'll move to the left and that means they have to hit to the right. So I want them to have like some type of ability to switch, but also at the same time, there's a lot of people out there who don't think like me. And so like, I do like the simplicity of being like, hey, it's just going to be attack. Yeah. And sometimes it might not be the right play, but at least you're fully committed to something instead of being uncommitted to nothing.
Yeah. Oh my God. At Ohio State. So to give you a feel, like my mind is where it's at. You can look at my page and see what I focus on in life. I was at Ohio State and I was so into thinking and creative and looking for the drop shot and maybe I go for this here and there that we had a literal playbook that I had to stick to. My coach he would stand at the back fence and call every single serve. I didn't get a say in my serve. I wasn't allowed to hit a backhand down the line. Every backhand I had to hit was cross court. I had to work on my slice 15 minutes a day. It was mostly slice. And I had to volley with my momentum. So every volley I hit, I had to hit it in the direction that my momentum was already going. And if I deviated from the plan, even if I won, I was right to the track.
That's
so
amazing. Yeah. Ty, well, I got some questions about Ty later, but the last topic you mentioned to me, and I want to get into it because I have no idea what it means. So I'm super excited for it. The third topic you said you were passionate about was the current deconstruction of the game.
Yeah.
And I have no clue what that means.
No?
Fill me in. Talk to me.
Oh boy. So pickleball comes out of nowhere, and now we are on our back feet having to justify why tennis is a good sport and why it's, we're kind of hanging our hat on the fact that it's a real sport and that it's harder. And so we've put into this identity crisis right away as tennis players, right? We didn't ask for that. And now I'm justifying why. And I'm not even saying that as a slag on pickleball. Like, pickleball's doing its thing. I got nothing but love for the pickle people, party on, pickle people. Okay. But we're in a position now where we're going, whoa, wait, hold on. Right. So that put us into an existential crisis. Now you got the PTPA, I believe. They're surging this sort of attack on the ATP, the WTA, saying that they're not treated fairly. There's a lot of good points that they're bringing to the table. What that's doing now is making us deconstruct the tour. Is it unsafe? Is it too much tennis? Are they treated unfairly? Is drug testing, and now you got drug testing. People are getting caught for contamination. 0.01%, and we throw the number one player in the world out for 3 months. So I think there's so much stuff that's happening. Then, okay, to add to that, Riley Opelka comes out and says that doubles isn't even a sport. So we got this massive deconstruction happening, which I think is very healthy. I think there's going to be a shiny light on the other side of the tunnel, but we're certainly going through the dark right now in some ways.
So what would you, in terms of increasing the popularity or the health of tennis in general, what would be your first step or two to accomplish that? My old head mind, which, the old head, no, we got to bring back serve and volleying and faster courts and team tennis. And that's me being nostalgic. That's me going, college tennis was the best because it was a team environment, and me and the team, we got to go out for the Olive Garden when we won. And that was the best part of my life. Why don't the pros just do that? Right? That's a bit silly. Serve and volleying, looking back at the old way, looking back at the way the sport used to be played, and it was more artistic and stuff. I feel like that's an outdated way to look. Like, the kids I didn't care when my parents were telling me that Billy Joel was better than Daft Punk. Like, fuck off, Dad. So I don't know, to be honest. I think a shorter season, makes sense. Less tennis. Like right now, a couple of weeks ago, I watched, I think it was Demon Hour versus Rublev, and it was just a Tuesday in the middle of March, and I'm going, what tournament is this again? And then a couple weeks later, they're playing each other again. I lost that because it's so accessible now. It's I get to watch the greats play every week. Football is so great because you only got to watch it on Sundays, right? So there was something beautiful about that. Maybe we can just jigger the schedule. Do you did you watch that F1 documentary, Drive to Survive, on Netflix? Have you seen that?
I didn't, but I've heard it's great.
Oh, okay. So I am the farthest guy. I drove a Honda Accord, this old Honda Accord, for 20 years. I couldn't care less about a car. Yeah. And if you've driven with me, I certainly don't drive quick. So It's that sport has nothing on me. But I watched the documentary, and now I watch every race. And what I love about that, which I wish there was a way for tennis to do it, is number one, they let you hear exactly what they're thinking in competition. Right. So they make a turn and they get cut off, and I can hear his radio to his coach going, that dude just cheated. He's such a jerk. Yeah, yeah. It's incredible. It's real time. I'm feeling that. They also do give up some tactical stuff. So there's a little bit more access and personality, which just drew me into the personalities. I don't even care about racing, but now I watch, and I love tennis, but a lot of it is I used to love when Hingis and Venus Williams were going to bump each other, or maybe it was Super Leia. I can't remember who it was, but I used to love that little bit of animosity and hatred. And I wish there's a little bit more access to not only the tactics of what people are doing, but a little bit more to their thought process in the matches.
I mean, that brings me to my hottest take, that Federer and Nadal kind of ruined tennis in a way. Obviously, Federer is the GOAT from a beauty standpoint, but look what they did. So now they could be, this is what Roger Federer and Nadal did to the game. On top of being two of the GOATs, Federer is so poised, so curated, so beautiful that he kind of put into the game that you have to have this curated perfection on the court and off the court. Nadal comes out and says, you got to play every point as if your life depends on it, right? A generation come up thinking, okay, I got to be perfect on and off the court. I got to fight for every point like my life depends on it. And they were besties, right? So I think now we have a generation of players, not their fault, but they were inspired by, curated life. Now, it doesn't help that the cameras are in their face all the time, and curation off the court equals big bucks. But you got to be perfect. You don't really want to have an opinion, right? Because Democrats and Republicans both buy Nike. You got to fight for every single point. You can't do the Pete Sampras and get the early break and tank your return games, right? That's what I used to do. I used to think you get an early break. Okay, well, I'm just going to cruise on my return game. Now it's like, oh, you're down 5-love in the third. You got to fight.
That is a scorching hot take. You undersold that one. That is very, very hot. I just think in general, and I know people are worried about it, but there are times in Formula One where those drivers do not make themselves look particularly great. They either look whiny or they're complaining or they look like a jerk. Yeah. But the value of that sport has gone up like 400% since they did the documentary. So it's like, yeah, you had a tough moment. Guess what? That makes you a human. And then you apologize and you move on. Or you had a fight with that driver. And guess what? You guys are playing Padel, next year because you made up, because you're a human being and you said you're sorry. And I feel like you said, people are trying so hard to be perfect that for me anyway, I know I get bored. I'm like, oh, that's not who they really are. Like no one acts like that all the time. So now I feel a distance between that player instead of being like, oh, I know who that guy is. And I've gone on the journey with him and I've seen him at his lows and I want to see him now win a slam. I don't feel like I have that. Yeah.
Well, you know what? The last time I had it in our sport was when Kyrgios was going at Djokovic. They became buddies a couple of years ago, right? And ever since then, it was like, okay. Like, I liked how he was calling him out and Djokovic was sort of taking it and giving some chirps back. And then they played at Wimbledon and it was like, is Kyrgios going to, dethrone him and talk trash and everything? Afterwards, they were hugging and playing doubles. And since then, I feel like I'm waiting. I'm just like you. I'm waiting for that next little beef.
Yeah. Love it. All right. We've got Instagram questions. You had a ton. Okay. First one. By the way, this is like I told you, the podcast is the biggest scam because I get you on, you entertain everyone. I don't have to do anything. And then I actually get people to ask the questions for me.
Perfect. Actually, and then you got somebody to edit it and then somebody posts it.
Yeah, it's great. And then everyone thanks me for the episode. So the first great question was, what are some of the most common mistakes you see players making on a daily basis at your club? Or give me the number one, the most common mistake you see.
The most common mistake I see, not using height. Originally, I know it's a boring one. Like coming right out of the gate and hitting low and hard over the net in the warm-up. I can't stand that. That's the number one sign of a rookie. The best players in the world are hitting rainbows to start the day and then slowly bringing it down. So that's a huge one. And another one is just like living shot to shot, like zero concept of, okay, this shot's going to get me this ball. It's just ball to ball.
Just like instinct, like a bug, just like in the moment, just reacting to things instead of like planning ahead what you might get.
Exactly. Yeah. The hummingbird.
Why do you think it is that, like, I've never seen a coach that says you should hit lower and you watch pros and they hit higher, especially in the beginning. And then the 3-5 adult who has 1/500th of the experience and expertise of those players decides to hit lower. Why do you think there's that disconnect there?
Honestly, maybe because of the two-dimensional view we get sometimes in tennis. I think that's what I blame it on. You're looking down at the court and you can't see the arc of the tennis ball. I also find that disconnect with the open and closed stance. It's like we're in the year 2025 and I still have to sell people on the open stance forehand. Like, didn't Richard Williams sell it in the 80s and that, at least in the movie King Richard, right? The fact that there's these weird little disconnects are mind-boggling to me.
Next question, similar vein. When you're looking across your club, once it opens up, what is something that you laugh at the most when you're watching like your C teamers that like maybe you wouldn't want to admit in the moment, but you're like, that's really funny that that's happening?
Probably the service motions. Like the little routines and then the service motions. Like one thing I see all the time, and I don't like laughing at people. If anything, I've gotten to the place where I've been in tennis so long that when I see a really confusing or unique service motion, I'm intrigued by it, right? It's like, ooh, fascinating. How does she get power? She does this 3 times and then tosses it 40 feet in the air. Like, it's like unique and it's like an exotic bird.
That's so funny. It is interesting that there's a lot of motion before the toss.
Yeah.
And I'll always ask someone, I'm like, what do you think? Where do you think the acceleration comes from? Or like, what do you think the most important part? So do you think lifting your arms before the toss or all this, like you haven't done anything yet. You're just moving around, which is fine. Like there's no problem with it. It's just unnecessary. Yeah.
And I do the same. And then I ask them to try to do their serve without it. And they if they can't, that's a red flag in my opinion. We got to fix that. A huge thing with the serve is bending the knees to toss the ball. So they bend down with the knees and then they straighten the knees to toss. And I said, you can toss that ball without bending your knees. Like that thing weighs 28 grams. You can, or however much, like you don't need the force of the ground.
That's really funny. Okay. How can you tell when you are either watching someone online or you travel and you're at a club? Yeah. How can you tell, or what do you look for you to decide if you think that teaching pro is quality or not?
Quality teaching pro?
Yeah, you see someone, you travel, you were out in California, you're at Indian Wells, and you see someone teaching a lesson on a court, and you go, oh, like, I think that guy knows what he's doing. I think that guy's probably a quality coach. Like, what do you look for?
If they're intimate in a way, like when they're giving their feedback. Okay, so a bad coach, and by the way, very guilty of this, yelling from my side to the other side the whole time. At no point no, not the whole time. I'm guilty of yelling. So I would say the thing that I would say is a bit of a red flag is if they spend the whole lesson at the net or on the other side of the court coaching from that side. If things aren't going well, a more seasoned coach will come onto the other side of the court, get closer to the player, talk to them, maybe do some hand feeding. And if that starts going good, they'll go back to their side. A coach unwilling to do that and just yelling and then, oh, let's get a break. And then they take a break. That's usually a problematic. It doesn't mean they're not a great tennis mind. I just don't think they're really getting through to their player.
I like that. So you see them basically connecting and communicating, and you're like, whether that guy knows how to take the racket back or I don't know what he's saying, but I know that he is probably delivering some type of message that's getting through.
Yeah, he's problem solving by changing his behavior, not problem solving by yelling and telling them to change theirs.
Right. Same vein, but how should someone go about, there's a 3-5 lady, a 4-5 dude, whatever, and they move to a new city.
Yeah.
How do you find the right coach for you? What should they be looking at in themselves, or what should they be looking for in a coach?
So quickly, I have a Substack where I'm going through all the different types of coaches right now. And in that, so they're the tennis coach archetypes. So for example, I call them the hedgehog.
I'm subscribed, by the way. So I've been reading these, but yes, please elaborate.
Yeah. So I believe, and I believe every tennis club you go to is almost the same. We have the same archetype of coaches at these clubs. At least, if they have a staff of coaches. One is called the hedgehog. The hedgehog is your blue collar, cut of the mill tennis coach. Let's say you're a tennis player at 3-5. You like playing your 1 hour of tennis a week. You're not looking to completely change your grip, but you want to continue to improve. I would give you like what I would call the hedgehog coach. This is somebody who's blue collar. They tend to be a bit lugubrious. They just they're conserving energy because they know that being on the court is all about energy and they've got to do 7 hours that day. So if you find someone who's a bit more slow, has a couple of tips under their belt, I'd say go with that person, right? If you're looking to completely change your grip and really get to that next level and you're willing to, go nuts with your game, find a coach who's a bit more, they fancy themselves more of a rock star. I call them the Fox. They're sort of in and out of the club. They like a challenge. They've got a lot of energy. That'll tend to, you'll take some of their energy and you'll use that into building your game. So yeah, I think it depends on what you're looking for, but you can check my Substack for all the archetypes of coaches and you can compare what you're looking for with what they offer.
Can you share this without maybe revealing Substack stuff, but what coach are you?
I'm a hybrid. I would say I've been a lot of them. I would say quickly, like I'm a bit of a cult Fox guy. Like I do have I'm trying to build a cult. It's not going that well, but I'm trying. I get distracted. Finding the content has sort of slowed me down a little bit, but I was certainly the guy who would zip into the club, teach a couple lessons, change some forehands, and then go back to my job as a writer for television and come back and forth.
Interesting. The Colt Fox. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one's going to be difficult, but I want you to give me your second hottest take then.
Okay.
Besides that Federer ruined the game of tennis.
Federer and Nadal.
So the question that this person asked was, what is one piece of advice that you and I disagree on? So I want you to give me your hottest take for advice that you would give a player that you know is a little bit out there, but you believe in. And then I'm going to see if I agree with you or not.
Poaching should be the norm in doubles.
No, that's you just gave me a hug.
Yeah.
That's incredible. That should be the default.
I wanted to just litmus test that. What would you disagree with me on?
What I just want to know your I'll give you one of mine.
Yeah.
I'll give you one of mine and you can tell me if you disagree with this.
Okay.
So in my doubles camps, people when your partner is returning serve,
yeah,
the other person is at the net and they're on the service line and they're calling the line and whatever else they do. And I go, why are you standing there? And they're like, well, I got to call the line. I'm like, well, they can probably call the line without you. Number one.
Yeah. Well.
Number two, my stance is that you're at the net to play offense. And when you're that far back, unless you're an elite mover and processing at elite level, you're never going to end up getting close enough to the net to play offense. So
right.
Yes, you are in good position if their opponent picks off a ball and poaches. You can reflex a little easier, but now you've removed all offense for your game. So I actually like people to stand much farther up in the box when they're the returner's partner. And they go, whoa, that is way different than what my coach at home says. And I go, yeah, you can do it my way. You can do it their way. It's your game. But I actually like the returner's net partner to start much closer to play offense. What are your thoughts on that?
I like the thinking on that. I'm just going to steal it. I like it. I think I was in autopilot mode with telling my players to stand back. You're right. You're never going to really get fully into that aggressive mode. And by the time you get into the defensive mode, they've probably hit the ball past you. So lingering in the middle is probably not doing you much good.
I see people always just a half beat behind. They start back and then they go, oh, I should close. And by the time they close, they don't even get close enough.
Yeah.
Now the ball's by them and they got to back up again. And so I see them running like crazy. And I'm like, you accomplished nothing.
Yeah.
So yes, there probably will be 5 times in the match where they poach and they put a volley by you that you could have reflexed. I get it. There also might be 40 more chances where you can play offense.
Yeah.
So just give me the 40 and sacrifice the 5. Okay. So we just gave each other 2 warm hugs. Is there anything else we can do?
You know, the thing is we're both doubles minded guys, and doubles is such a game of figuring things out and implementing these strategies, and they all kind of make sense. Singles is a bit more of a testing each other out game. Doubles is better than singles. I mean, you're going to probably agree with that. You enjoy double. Yeah. It's more fun.
Maybe we're just both brilliant. Yeah. That could be it.
It's it. What else? Serve and volleying's dead. I don't think it's coming back.
In singles?
Yeah.
I mean, I agree. It's a nice change up. They say it works when you do it, and it does, but not as a primary tactic.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to go to the old head, but polyester strings and babble-out rackets are turned to... Tennis is the new squash. It's just a fitness battle on the singles side.
Yeah, I mean... I will say, I was telling someone, I had 2 young girls who came from out of town today, and the dad was asking about what high level tennis. The number one thing that stands out when I go to a tournament, men and women, is I'm like, oh, they're men and women. When I look at a college player, I'm like, they are so strong and so thick, and they look like they're just monsters athletically. And they kind of have to be, like you said, because you'll just wear someone down. When I see a really good college player, they look like a boy compared to a 24-year-old on tour.
Yeah. Okay, here's a hot take. Ooh. College tennis, the NIL money could have potentially just destroyed 100 college programs.
I think you and I are just best friends.
There we go. Let's do it. Let's
elaborate on that one.
We should do a podcast.
This is a warm hug.
Well,
tell me why it ruined it.
What I've seen of it immediately is what's happening is that there's only certain schools that can compete now with paying the players. So yes, you are going to get a ton of talent into the college system, but I'm sorry, but the Dayton Flyers aren't going to be able to drop $100K on that new Swede. But Wake Forest, they got a tunnel now. So it was sort of who could come out of the gate fastest. The top schools have a ton of money that they're giving to some incredible players. And we're seeing schools dropping programs at the bottom, which could be very sad if we don't figure out a way to remedy that.
Right. I was thinking if you're named Virginia Tech in the ACC and they can't have the same amount of money. Yeah. Well, if you're going to be in the bottom third with 4.5 scholarships, why not be in the bottom third with 1? Or why not just get rid of, why invest in the program if other schools are raising $100,000 for each lineup spot. Like you're just going to have more haves and have nots. And it's a super interesting dynamic. And I am so thrilled that I got out of college before that happened.
Yeah.
It sounds like an absolute nightmare.
Here's another hot take while we're on it. You can use whichever you want. College should get rid of the 6 lines, just 3 lines. Because right now with 6 lines, you can't televise. You're not, it's $50,000 a court to televise a tennis court properly for television. So for college, that's what I heard from David Mullins, the head of the ITA, on the No Court, No Problem podcast. So it checks out. $50,000 a court. You got 6 courts. A lot of those courts are just going to be blowouts, and you're not going to be jumping from court to court. So I think what you need to do with college tennis maybe is put 3 lines. Sorry, guys at the bottom. Put court 1, 2, and 3. Play it all on one court. And maybe even shorten it to just like 2 out of 3 sets with a tiebreaker for the third.
Okay. So it's our first, we can still be friends. That's probably our first disagreement. That is scorching hot. That's not quite as hot as your Federer take, which will definitely become a reel in the future. I got 2 more actually while I get you, and I can edit these out if it's too long. This is one of my longer episodes. I want to know, and a lot of people want to know, your best Ty Tucker story.
Oh my God. Ty Tucker. So Ty Tucker, this story starts with me benched for getting caught drinking the night before the Big Ten and being thrown in the drunk tank. And then I came out, won my doubles, by the way, and then lost my singles. And he said, you're benched. So for the next 2 weeks, I'm benched, yet I'm still allowed to come to practice. It's unsure of whether I'm going to get kicked off the team or not. We have the NCAA tournament coming up. We got to play Vanderbilt first round, who are our rival. The day I'm benched, but I'm still traveling with the team. Usually I play court 4, okay, and 1 doubles. The day of the match, 3 guys on my team pull a mutiny. 2 of them decide they're not playing. They're transferring. 1 guy goes to Miami. The other guy goes to Arizona. They're literally gone, okay? The 3rd guy apparently got food poisoning. Our bench wasn't deep enough, so now I got to play. Okay. He can't bench me anymore. He comes over to me and he says, you're playing. I go, well, shoulder's a little tight or whatever. He goes, you win, you're back on the team. Okay. Long story short, it'll be in my book. I go out, I beat my rival 7-6 in the 3rd, hitting a jam serve on match point because you got to go blue collar on match point if you play for Ohio State. I didn't go for the ace. Win match point. Tucker comes over to me. He says, 1 more year. Kicks me off the team the next year. But hey, he stood true to his promise.
That I love so many elements of that. Just the pure outcome based. If you win, you're back. I love that. That is so on brand.
That's it.
That is freaking hilarious. And last question, as always, what is your best advice for the 4-0 adult recreational doubles player?
4-0 adult. Okay, the 4-0. You're trying to be a 4-5. You're in your own head. The return is an attack. I've run 4.0 clinics and revolutionized guys' lives with that tip. Take that return inside the court. Especially the second serve. I want you a meter inside the court or, 3 feet inside the court when you're making contact with that second serve. Take it on the rise. Go after it. And if you miss, hey, if you're that person's partner, give them permission to go for that.
That's awesome. I love that. I love seeing your stuff online. I don't really laugh, especially by myself, but I will give a big smile because most of your stuff resonates, like it just hits home. It's exactly what a lot of coaches are thinking, or we've seen that. Where can people find you, your content, all your Substacks, all that? Where can they find you?
Definitely find me on Substack. On Substack, I'm coming out with a lot more long form writing. I'm going to have a lot of informative stuff with coaching, but also just comedy and releasing chapters from my book. If you do an annual subscription, you get some exclusive one-of-a-kind clothing items you can't get anywhere else. Find me on Instagram at Tennis Coach Conor Casey, where you're probably watching this right now. And find me at the bar during happy hour.
I absolutely love it. Thanks so much for coming on. And then you're going to have to noodle the rest of the day and find something that we really disagree on. That way we won't be best friends. But it was so great meeting you and having you on the show.
Thank you.